Hey guys, Mapletail here. Today is my review of the latest book in the Warrior Cat series, Sky. So spoiler warning for the entire book. Before I get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. As usual, this isn't a formal review, just sort of my thoughts chapter by chapter. I've already read and talked about up to chapter 3 from the preview, so today we're jumping right into chapter 4. It's a Sunbeam POV. Roan Kit is getting sicker, and is now past the illness to blaze fire. And I don't have high hopes that SkyClan will be swooping in to save anyone with catnip if the white cough outbreak develops into a green cough one. We quickly learn that SkyClan has a shortage of the herb, and that ShadowClan and ThunderClan have both been denied foraging rights on their territory. Tigerstar annoyingly yells that Fringewhisker must be hoarding catmint, which no medicine cat in their right mind would ever do, especially when a young kit's life is at stake. I get that he's worried about his child, but this isn't helping. When Tigerstar decides to send a patrol to RiverClan to ask for help, I already know that they will likely be turned away, not wanting ShadowClan to discover Misty Star and Reedwhisker's deaths. But he's absolutely going to take it the wrong way. I was shocked when the patrol actually was led into RiverClan camp to see Frostpaw. RiverClan is also out of catmint, leaving only WindClan as a possibility. And they do a god-awful job at pretending everything is fine, making the ShadowClan warriors even more suspicious that RiverClan is hiding something. When Puddleshine returns, he luckily does have a couple sad-looking strands of catmint, but that's all there is. The clans are in for a treacherous leaf bear. Nightheart not so subtly throws an accusation at former SkyClan cat Fringewhisker. Yeah, like an early case of white cough is all her fault. I just hope that Sunbeam stays far away from her mother's twisted ideals about cats changing clans. Next up is a Nightheart chapter, which makes me nervous considering how his previous chapter went. Whether or not you like the trans Nightheart headcanon is irrelevant here, because either way, a lot of the language and way of thinking in chapter 2 is really harmful, and I hope the handling of this plotline improves. Anyways, Nightheart is still majorly struggling with being a ThunderClan warrior, now recovering from a nasty squirrel bite. And we have more of Nightheart being compared to Firestar, which makes less and less sense the more it happens. Why, of all the Firestar's descendants, is he being signaled out like this so much? I mean, he has a sister. Has anyone ever made the comparison there? It just makes all the characters around Nightheart sound so out of character, as no one has ever cared about this so much before this arc. At least not in this way. In the Medicine Cat's Den, Nightheart mentions that he might fit in better with a different clan, or even do better on his own as a loner. And I agree. It's what this arc is all about too, so it'd make a lot of sense if one of our protagonists ended up moving clans. And Nightheart seems like the perfect fit for that. This reminds me a bit of Tawny Pelt's youth, and her wanting to escape her father's legacy. I bet her and Nightheart would get along great, and I'd love to see a scene of them together. I do love that Alderheart seems to have faith in Nightheart, that he will find a place wherever that ends up being, and shows kindness to the young warrior that many have been withholding. It was so cute that Nightheart slept outside, wanting to see when Jayfeather and Alderheart return from the Moonpool meeting with all the other medicine cats about the catmint shortage, to make sure the two cats came home safely. And they do. Bringing news of sending a patrol past clan territory to search for the elusive herb. Back down the path SkyClan came from. Fringewhisker had warned that it could be dangerous, which should be taken very seriously, considering all the hardship from Hawkwing's journey. I'm still traumatized by all the loss in that book. She has every right to consider that a heroic journey, and it annoyed me that Jayfeather scoffed at the thought, even though that's kind of his thing. I wasn't surprised when Jayfeather suggested that Nightheart go with Alderheart on the journey. A chance to do something big for his clan, and to prove himself, hopefully giving him some much-needed self-confidence. And I'd love to see some uncle-nephew bonding between the two. It's worth noting that it was Squirrelflight dealing with all the planning and speaking for ThunderClan all throughout this chapter. It's becoming pretty clear to me that Bramblestar is not long for his position, whether he die or be demoted. But the real question on my mind is if Squirrelflight will step up as leader or someone else. Chapter 5 is back with Frostpaw, who thankfully is staying with RiverClan where they need her most. Though I'd bet that Sunbeam ends up joining Shadowsight on the Catmint journey for ShadowClan. Anyways, Frostpaw. She stays at the Moonpool to speak with StarClan and is greeted with none other than Curlfeather. I was so pleased to see her again. Curlfeather isn't able to tell her who to make leader, only that it's up to the living clans and that Frostpaw should look beyond the obvious choices. Everyone trusts Frostpaw so much with all this, and it's putting so much pressure on her tiny shoulders. Before reading on, I have to take some guesses. Shimmerpelt and Duskfur are out of the running, as now being mentioned as most obvious choices. The way Curlfeather spoke about it, it sounds like a cat who normally wouldn't be chosen as leader. Like a cat who hasn't been a mentor, or maybe even a medicine cat. I've seen a lot of talk in the fandom about Mothstar or even Froststar, and honestly it's starting to make a fair bit of sense. But would Mothwing even be able to become a leader if she can't speak to StarClan? Could she receive 9 lives? Also, Splashtail keeps getting mentioned, and has had a couple scenes in this book, so I want to throw him in the running as well, even though I am desperate for more female leadership, as Leafstar is the only current she-cat officially leading a clan. Back with Sunbeam. Surprise, surprise, she was chosen for the journey. But actual surprise, with ShadowClan needing their medicine cats, Lightleap is chosen to go instead. I hope this is a chance for the she-cats to rekindle their friendship instead of just more trauma. We also learned that Rootspring and Fidget Flake are the other cats going. Makes sense now why Fidget Flake is featured on the cover. And when Sunbeam sees Nightheart, she describes him as being a handsome black Tom. If this is going where I think it is going, I hope it's handled better than Rootspring and Bristlefrost, which still upsets me for a lot of reasons, but I digress. Sunbeam accidentally offends Nightheart by calling him his apprentice name, but when she says Night suits him better, I can tell they're gonna get along just fine. It's actually really sweet to see Nightheart approach Sunbeam to hunt a rabbit together, after Lightleap went after her prey. Unlike cats like Lionblaze, Sunbeam can see that Nightheart is a good hunter, and the two work really well together as a team. It was so cool to hear all the traveling cats' thoughts on the changing code, Nightheart obviously being super for it, which is really interesting to see in a character, versus Sunbeam, who's not so sure. Her heart's in the right place, but Berryheart's influence is definitely felt here. I loved Nightheart confiding in her about all his struggles, and her reminding him that if his ThunderClan kin doesn't accept him, he has kin in ShadowClan too, with Tawny Pelt and her family. Which he seems pretty excited about. Even if Sunbeam didn't mean to encourage him quite like that. Which makes sense considering her own struggles with being at odds with her clan, which he tells Nightheart, and he remembers her mentioning it last time they spoke. Sunbeam thinks about how handsome and good-hearted Nightheart is, and how some ThunderClan she-cat must think so too, telling him, once you fall in love with a pretty clanmate, you'll feel differently about everything. And if that's not foreshadowing, I don't know what is. Chapter 8 is back with the Nightheart POV. The patrol makes it through what I think is some kind of fair, into the two-leg place that is supposed to have catmint. They run into a small grey kit with round ears and their mother, who upon hearing about sick Rowan Kit, point them into the right direction. And they actually find plentiful catmint. Woo! After a stolen meal of hot chicken, I think, all the patrolling cats snuggle up to sleep, which was really cute. I love when friendships bloom between clans. Back in RiverClan, poor Frostpaw's head is swimming with names of her clanmates, trying to decide who to make leader of RiverClan. A name comes to Frostpaw, and for once, no reasons why it shouldn't be them come to her. I am beyond curious. Frostpaw gathers the clan and announces her and hopefully StarClan's choice. Owlnose. Okay, I'm intrigued. I was correct that it's a cat who hasn't had an apprentice, so that's something. Him trying to organize patrols reminded me of Firestar's early days as deputy. Just a nervous guy. It's unfortunate that they decided to wait until tomorrow to take Owlnose to the moon pool. The delay is stressing me out. More time for him to die. I am glad for Frostpaw to have a break, to breathe, and probably mourn her mother. And just as they relaxed, disaster strikes. The riverbed collapsed, badly injuring Brackenpelt. Owlnose trembling and looking small and afraid of the chaos. He's trying his best, but so far he does not seem like he has what it takes to be RiverClan's leader. Duskfur corners Frostpaw, and we get a glimpse of the Trust No Cat plotline that was set up in River. Duskfur asks a lot of questions about what StarClan said, and asked if it was StarClan or just Curlfeather who guided Frostpaw to choose Owlnose. It's all pretty ominous, and I'm starting to feel pretty distrustful of Duskfur. Chapter 10. Sunbeam and the patrol rush back to the clans, hoping they aren't too late. And they were. Too late. Rowan Kit was dead. Not only that, but many more cats have fallen ill, including Cinnamon Tail's kits. This outbreak feels like a real threat now. Rowan Kit's vigil was devastating, but I'm more worried about the ripple effects of this loss. ShadowClan is already starting to blame WindClan and RiverClan, who didn't send cats on the journey. Not that it would have made a difference. Tigerstar won't see it that way, and he's great at seeing the worst in every cat. And that Berryheart, she's the real threat. Inviting Sunbeam to a meeting of ShadowClan cats to discuss clan swapping, as she calls it, which I'm sure will be nothing but trouble. And it was even more infuriating than I expected. They blame Fringewhisker for the illness because they had a case of white cough in SkyClan. And they go as far to suggest she infected ShadowClan on purpose, and that SkyClan sabotaged all the catmint supplies. I've honestly never heard anything so ridiculous. These warriors are so close-minded, and it's really hard to read. Thanks StarClan that Sunbeam is very opposed to this line of thinking, and can see how dangerous it is. Not to mention just plain wrong. And defends SkyClan. I knew changing the code was going to be opposed by some cats, but this is so frustrating, and it could snowball very quickly into all-out war. Will nothing ever change for good? Will there always be such opposition to change, and towards accepting cats that are different from oneself? Back with Nightheart and ThunderClan. After a bit of over-complaining from Nightheart about having to clean Bramblestar's den, we get to see the leader himself. He's clearly not well, but not in an Ashfur way. More like he's just gone through too much and is too tired and dazed to recover. Not too dazed to trick Nightheart into telling him that Squirrelflight had gone to WindClan behind Bramblestar's back last book. Not good. Bramblestar yells at him to get out, and Nightheart fears that he will never return to being the great leader he used to be. And he feared Squirrelflight taking over? What, because she failed his assessment and had him clear a few dens? What the hell? She would be a fabulous leader. Better than Bramblestar ever was. We return to RiverClan, with Frostpaw leading Owlnose to the moon pool. Hope they're watching out for dogs. And Owlnose is so anxious about the upcoming ceremony. It's kind of endearing, honestly. And he was right to worry. The ceremony fails, and Owlnose was not given 9 lives. He didn't even see a single StarClan cat. But Mothwing and Frostpaw decide that he will keep leading RiverClan, saying this is possibly a test for Owlnose before he receives his lives. And Owlnose chooses Splashtail as deputy. Not too happy that another Tom is in a leadership position, but at least it wasn't Duskfur. And I'm not so happy with RiverClan's plans to continue keeping such important secrets from the other clans. Especially when Tigerstar is looking for any excuse to cause trouble. Speaking of, Tawny Pelt interrupts and calls RiverClan to a special gathering to talk about the catmint. That's gonna be bad, I just know it. We go to the gathering with Sunbeam. RiverClan finally announces the deaths of Misty Star and Reedwhisker. And more lies. Owlnose telling the clans that Misty Star died of green cough over a moon ago. This poor guy is so nervous. At least Leafstar spoke gently to him and gave him some sympathy. He tries to tell some story about Reedwhisker naming him deputy before dying. And it quickly goes sideways. Tigerstar poking holes in the story until Owlnose breaks down and admits everything. I was pretty frustrated with the lies at first, but when everything fell apart the way it did, it was kind of hilarious. And then I was furious. Tigerstar suggests that ShadowClan take over leadership over RiverClan for a time. What? Someone tell me why we're here again. Which Tigerstar is this? Next thing you'll know, he'll try to change the name to TigerClan. Just like his villain of a grandfather. He has no right, and is being incredibly presumptuous. Tawny Pelt thankfully points this out. I was shocked to hear that cats like Sunbeam don't know this horrible history. If you forget your history, you're doomed to repeat it. Case in point. When will these cats learn? Leafstar has a much more reasonable solution, sending Fidget Flake to RiverClan, to hopefully help them reach StarClan. Ah, what a mess. Back to Nightheart. He listens in on a conversation between a visiting Leafstar and Bramblestar and Squirrelflight. Leafstar and Squirrelflight are rightfully concerned about what Tigerstar might do, but Bramblestar agrees with the ShadowClan leader? What? I definitely agree with Leafstar in her thinking Bramblestar is being naive, that Tigerstar just wants to offer advice and not take over. He could do that from his own clan. When Leafstar leaves, Squirrelflight turns on Bramblestar, calling him out for staying out of the fray. Tigerstar and Bramblestar are exhausting to deal with. I'm so tired. We need more leaders like Leafstar and Squirrelflight. And it only gets worse. Bramblestar goes on a walk with Nightheart, and it's weird. He ends up asking Nightheart to sneak into ShadowClan territory and ask Sunbeam and other warriors of Tigerstar's intentions. Not only that, but to keep this all a secret from Squirrelflight. What the hell is happening in this book? Back with Frostpaw. Splashtail encourages her, and she feels a rush of feelings, wondering if her feelings have turned into more than friendship. Please don't. She's just a little guy and a medicine cat. Please just let cats be friends. Fidget Flake is a welcome addition, at least until he finds catmint stashed away. With everything going on, Mothwing had forgotten about it. It could have saved Rowan Kit, and Tigerstar is going to take that very personally when he finds out. On the way to the moon pool, Fidget Flake learns of the dog attack, and mentions that bones were left on WindClan territory, possibly left from the dogs, or for the dogs, as a lure. Frostpaw is struck by the realization that all the cats who have died were connected. They were all leaders, or about to become one. No kidding, Frostpaw. Hello. While she's mulling over this obvious revelation, Owlnose stops and refuses to go into the moon pool. End of chapter. Oh my god. But it is good to see Frostpaw start to consider the fact that all these deaths may not be what they seem. Back with Sunbeam, we witness a cruel setup. Berryheart and her lackeys on a patrol with Fringewhisker tell Fringewhisker to let SkyClan keep a squirrel that they chased onto ShadowClan territory. Then told Tigerstar it was all Fringewhisker's doing. Thankfully Dovewing and Sunbeam stood up for the she-cat, and Sunbeam went after Fringewhisker and got the full story from her. And even better, she stands up to her mother, swearing that she would never agree with her on this, and wanted her to keep her terrible opinions to herself. Go Sunbeam. I do get that Berryheart is traumatized from Darktail's reign, but this is clearly a very different situation and is not that comparable. Back with Nightheart, I was really glad to get to know Bayshine a bit more, and I'm already pretty attached. He's unimpressed by the mission to sneak into ShadowClan, and can see that Bramblestar isn't the great leader that everyone claims he is, saying he'd rather be taking orders from Squirrelflight, as he should. This definitely feels like we're heading for a demotion for Bramblestar. It felt a bit odd that Nightheart was suddenly so passionate about following the code, and just the part about a leader's word being the code. His whole thing is about being unique and wanting change, but this is such a traditional view to have. I was so proud of Bayshine when he came clean to Squirrelflight. It really annoys me that Nightheart dislikes Squirrelflight so much, claiming she ruined his chances to be a real warrior. Sneaking off to see Sunbeam does not a real warrior make. Bramblestar is just trying to get back at Squirrelflight and is using Nightheart. It's really upsetting and unbecoming of a leader. And Nightheart decides to sneak off anyways, but this time to ask Sunbeam to be his mate. That's a big decision not to be taken lightly. And not with a she-cat you've spent like 2 days with. It just feels really sudden, and I hope Nightheart doesn't try to use Sunbeam just to join ShadowClan. She deserves much better than that. The line, even if she wasn't ready to be mates, worries the hell out of me. What if she never wants that? Maybe find out what she feels about you before assuming that even if she doesn't want to be mates right now, she will one day. And his plan to hide in ShadowClan's dirt place until Sunbeam shows up just comes off as a little creepy. Nightheart runs into Blazefire, and he actually seems pleased that Nightheart came looking for Sunbeam and offers to fetch her. I'm glad Nightheart doesn't end up asking Sunbeam to be his mate, but it is definitely gonna happen. I felt even worse when we moved to a Sunbeam POV. And she was excited at the possibility of Nightheart moving to ShadowClan so that she could have a real friend again. I wish that's all it was. When she runs into Blazefire and Lightleap, clearly being more than friends, I really feel for her. That would be so painful. And the 2 cats she was closest to had lied to her about their relationship. I was super proud of Sunbeam though, when she found out she didn't really care. She'd moved on from her feelings from Blazefire. I'm really happy for her. Frostpaw tries and fails to reach StarClan once again. I'm so curious about her unique connection. Why can't Misty Star reach her, but Curlfeather can? Why did she receive some visions and then nothing? She fantasizes about leaving her position and becoming a warrior apprentice, which is so incredibly valid considering how much has been put on her tiny shoulders. Unfortunately, back at camp, Tigerstar and a slew of warriors have turned up. I don't like where this is going. If he really just came to help, why did he bring an army? Nightheart's plotline is just upsetting me more and more. He is getting way ahead of himself, thinking stuff like, in ShadowClan he could find the respect he deserved, and he'd have Sunbeam as a mate. Please just have an honest conversation with her before planning your whole life together. And him thinking about talking to Finleap about it, thinking how he'd always liked the Tom, concerns me, considering how viscerally uncomfortable Finleap's courting of Twigbranch made me. And it only goes downhill from here. After a confrontation with Squirrelflight, Nightheart runs away to join ShadowClan, breaking poor Bayshine's heart. Going to their camp and announcing to Blazefire that he is here to join ShadowClan as Sunbeam's mate. Big yikes. Back in RiverClan, all-out battle starts when Tigerstar tries to force his help upon the other clan. To be fair, RiverClan attacked first. And honestly, I think Tigerstar's intentions are good. But this is not the way to go about it. Bringing all his warriors in the middle of the night was just asking for trouble. Tigerstar wins the battle and forces RiverClan into surrender. It's heartbreaking to see. Even if he really just wants to help, I can't help but think this is a lot of unnecessary harm. Would he have killed just to have his way if it came to it? And with that, the book ends. Thanks for watching. Overall, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this book, and I think I need to sit with it for a while to process it all. One thing I'll say is I'm a little disappointed with how little payoff we got in terms of all the mystery river setup. I really want to know where that's all going, and that's what made me so excited about this arc. But let me know what you thought about it, if you've given it a read, and I'll see you next Thursday.